All right.
live.
Yep. Tweet just went out.
It's so funny. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. And as you can see today, we're coming at you from a birthday party or something, which is absolutely hilarious. The together mode thing rolled out to Skype, and I just figured we'd take a look real quick. It is taxing my CPU, though, so I'm not going to have it on for long. But I just saw this and thought it was hilarious. So there you are.
Oh, come on. I'm just saying it now.
Could you imagine doing a serious meeting with like a colleague or a manager? You've got to fire them. And...
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're going to pull a Peloton.
Yeah.
By the way, we're here to announce we're giving ourselves raises.
Yep.
And we're laying off 2,800 of you.
Oh, man.
But you will have subscriptions to Peloton for a year.
Yeah.
You are welcome. Now, excuse us. We are going to enjoy our party.
Yeah.
We don't take this lightly. This was a very hard decision, but we will.
But enjoy the virtual party we've thrown on. All right, let's get rid of that. Let's do some serious stuff. Serious talk about serious.
I still think about this stuff like in the sense of like going back in time and telling yourself, like in the year 2005. So yeah, in the year 2022, we'll be having virtual meetings, and you'll be in a fake room with balloons and streaming, and be talking about things like HoloLens. Okay, are we?
I'm ready.
Good to go.
Yep.
All right, I am now recording.
I'm now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 258 for February 11th, 2022. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. We have, although it was technically a slow week, we still have a full roster of things to talk about, including Zach's latest exclusive story talking about new Windows 11 features that will be coming to the dev channel quite soon. This is stuff I think many of you have been complaining, requesting from Microsoft to bring back to Windows 11. A lot of it's justified. I'm not, poking fun of it, but still, we'll go through that, what the expectations are there, what those features are. We'll talk a little bit about the ARM and NVIDIA deal falling apart, what that could mean long term, what happens next. A little bit more on the HoloLens 3 news. I'm forgetting the track record of this stuff now. Didn't we do like a story on Friday, and then like Friday night another story came out?
Yeah, there's a whole
mess. Okay, that's where we are.
Yeah,
it's all blur lately for me. And then I did another editorial, and so we'll go through all that, what that means, including that Samsung partnership, and why I'm kind of being so harsh on Microsoft regarding this topic. I'll explain a little bit about that. More alleged Snapdragon ATX Gen 3 benchmarks leaked, although this could be Microsoft's SQ3, which is just a fancy rebranding of Qualcomm's ARM processor, the latest one. Now, we haven't seen any devices yet. There's been some speculation that this could be the new Surface Pro X2, but we're going to throw some water onto that rumor. As much as I wish it were true, don't get us wrong, that device is still coming. It's going to be my main device as soon as it comes out, of course. But we'll talk about, put into context what we think is actually going on there, especially in light of Mobile World Congress coming up, which for a lot of us will be virtual again. That's in Barcelona, Spain, coming up at the end of February, beginning of March. It usually varies. But there should be a lot more device news coming out around then. And if we have time, we'll have some bits and bobs on other stories that have happened during the week that are a lot smaller. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday? We're, of course, 1 hour earlier, so Zach should be a little bit happier.
Yes, I'm very happy. It's currently 6:30 p.m. here, which means we'll be done, hopefully, by 8. And I can have the rest of the evening to myself. But yeah, no, I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good, too. Yeah, I actually do like the earlier thing just because... I can get out and run some errands as well. And finish up everything. Friday's kind of an unproductive day usually for me just because of prepping for the podcast, reading up on stories for the podcast, occasionally having to comb my hair for the podcast. Otherwise, I would just remain in PJs all day. But yeah, let's get to the news here. So you have kicked off this Friday with a pretty big news story regarding Windows 11 and new features. So to put in context, what was it, a week or two ago, Microsoft announced that the dev channel, basically kind of a revision to the Insider program. It wasn't drastic changes, but the dev channel was going to get a little bit more wild with new features coming. Of course, there is still that existing caveat that what may be tested may not actually ship. These are sort of experiments that Microsoft wants to toy around with. They will be A/B tested. Moreover, they will be announcing, or they won't be announcing some features that will just show up as A/B testing. So it's really a double-blind kind of study. So that's the context. And now you're starting to actually hear what some of those features may be shipping, and shipping soon, too, I think is the important thing here. So walk us through that.
Yeah, so regarding the shipping soon thing, it does really depend on how Microsoft navigates the next couple of weeks. As we sort of know at this point, the last 2 weeks, there hasn't been a dev channel build. And, that always, makes me curious as to what's going on in time. Whenever they miss a week, I'm instantly asking people, hey, why did they miss this? And usually there's no real reason. But this time around, I believe the reason is that they actually were adding a bunch of new stuff into the pre-release branch that goes out to insiders. And so they've taken a week or two to sort of stabilize that and make sure everything's working as intended. Also this week, before we get into the actual new features, also this week, Microsoft did jump builds, which usually happens when a new development semester begins. Now, when this has happened in the past, Microsoft has then taken insiders on a bit of a detour away from the pre-release branch and over to an underscore release branch. They did it with the FE underscore release. They did it with MN underscore release. They did it with co underscore release. And now we're at the point again where that normally happens. If that does happen this time, then the features I'm about to talk about may not show up for 3 weeks or more, because Microsoft takes this detour takes away from the branch that's getting all the new features, unfortunately. But that might not happen. I actually don't know if they're going to do that this time. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. So that's up in the air. But when we do finally return to the RS underscore pre-release branch, whenever that happens, could be next week, could be in a few weeks, I am hearing that it will have a number of new features, many of which are sort of adding on to the general Windows 11 UX and just that sort of vision. Others are bringing back functionality that was in Windows 10 but didn't make it for the initial cut of Windows 11. And where better to start than with things like the start menu. I'm hearing there's a new app folders feature, so you'll be able to create app folders within the start menu grid system on the pinned area, which is really nice. I know that's been a really big sort of request from insiders who were using Windows 10's live folders on the start menu. That's kind of, I guess, coming back in Windows 11, just in a more simplistic design like the rest of the start menu interface. They're also adding a new sort of UI called the Snapbar, which is a third sort of way of initiating the snapping grids feature on Windows 11. So right now there's two ways to do it. You can either hover over the window controls to get that little menu that drops down the snapping grids, or you can just grab the window and drag it to the left or right of your screen, or up if you want to maximize it, and that will give you snapping grids as well. Snapbar is a third way of doing this. So whenever you grab onto a window, a UI pops down that will present the snapping grid. So you can drag into that and it will lay out the windows just like you would expect. So that's another sort of productivity feature coming that's adding on to the snapping UX side of things. We also have improvements to the taskbar. Many of these are sort of obvious stuff that we sort of knew was coming for a long time, but they are now in the pre-release branch, so that could show up any day. Things like dragging and dropping support in the taskbar. That's been a thing that I've missed dearly. I think most people have been missing that dearly, and that's finally in testing internally and should hopefully show up with insiders soon. There's also new gestures for tablets. I remember when Windows 11 was first announced, people were asking, hey, is there a way to access the start menu using gestures? And there wasn't. But now I'm hearing that is in fact coming. In the internal builds, users can now swipe up from the bottom to access the start menu, or swipe up from the corner to access the quick settings panel. Swiping in from the left and right is the usual thing, notifications / widgets if you want to get access to that. But it's good to see that the start menu gesture is actually making its way from Windows 10X to Windows Desktop, because that was a thing on Windows 10X originally. Then there's a bunch of just sort of other small things here and there, just overall quality of life improvements. Let me see if I can pull up the article here and just a list of all the stuff. I'm hearing there's a new live captions feature, which will be similar to, I think Android already does this, but built-in live captions, which will analyze the audio coming out of your device and then give you captions for it, which is really handy. We have acrylic title bar, so this is a minor UI change. In fact, Microsoft already sort of revealed this accidentally in one of their recent live streams on the Windows Developer Channel. But legacy Windows dialogues are getting an acrylic title bar, which will just make it look a little bit more modern, which is nice. We have improvements to quick settings and notification center. I'm not too sure exactly what these are specifically. I did hear that maybe the notification center is getting the ability to enable / disable focus assist directly from that panel rather than in the quick settings panel. And also a focus timer thing, focus sessions in the Alarm and Clock app. I think there's a way to initiate that from the notification center in the newer builds. So that'll be interesting to see. And then pinned files in File Explorer, just a simple thing where you can pin files to the recents area in the File Explorer now, which is nice. And then I'm sure there's more to come as well. Not everything in this article I've written is all of it, so I'm pretty sure there's more stuff that I'm not privy to. But that's sort of the big things that I'm hearing is coming to insiders within the next few weeks whenever the builds from RS pre-release begin rolling out again. And that's super exciting, A lot of this is stuff that we've been asking for. A lot of this was stuff that was missing from Windows 11 that was there on Windows 10, now being brought back. And it's overall just making the next version of Windows 11 a much more rounded release. It's completing the vision, essentially. I said this earlier this year that the 22H2 release, Sun Valley 2, is really all about sort of completing the vision, because Windows 11 version 1, the vision's mostly there, but it's still missing a lot of it, bits and pieces here and there, and version 2, Sun Valley 2, is supposed to complete that vision. So very exciting stuff, I think. So the next few weeks will hopefully be super interesting for those of you who have been waiting for new features. Dan, what are your thoughts on all of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you're like, well, it may not come for 3 weeks, but I think that's like the first time we've had like significant new features, even if it's in the dev channel. But 3 weeks is not really a long time at all.
No,
I usually when you leak stuff about plans, it's like 6 months, or it could be later in the year. So I think 3 weeks is more than even if they do 4 weeks, I think we'll be okay. None of these features really appeal to me too much. The drag and drop stuff in a taskbar. Start menu folder. I really don't use any of this. I'm a really pretty basic user of Windows. That said, anything that alleviates complaints and comments about Windows 11 is fine by me. It's the less I have to hear about. And I think obviously these are moves for a lot of people that this is a step in the right direction. We talked about this a lot on the podcast that they didn't remove features from Windows 11. They rebuilt core aspects of it. And I think this has to do with the C shell stuff, but you can maybe elaborate on it. But like the taskbars reread. And one of the cool things about them rewriting this stuff, one, it's supposedly more efficient. I would assume remove some bloat from the code of legacy stuff, which is always an issue with Windows. We do always want Windows to be as streamlined as possible, especially as we move towards these thinner devices, Windows on ARM, and all this kind of stuff. And I think there's a healthiness to stripping things down to the basics and then building back up based on the current trends and needs and wants of people, and feedback on that versus, well, it's always been there for 20 years, so we need to keep it. You can't have both a legacy operating system and a modern operating system. So I think this idea of stripping things out, all right, let's slowly bring back features and see how they work, I think is the right choice. There's some growing pains in between there, of course, but I think this is going to be the right approach. And from what I understand, because of the way Windows 11 is architected, can I use that word, designed, and the way they did the taskbar, they can bring features and add features a lot easier now with this updated code base, which means we should see more rapid development of Windows 11 compared to, say, Windows 10. And, the further you go back, the larger the gaps are between feature releases and getting new stuff, where now it seems like not only is there going to be that one big yearly update, but it sounds like as new features come on that have a more immediate need, they can just roll it out in a cumulative update and we can get that. We saw that this week with the weather icon finally coming to the release preview channel, which small, tiny thing. I like it a lot though.
Yeah. And also, the stuff that I've written about today comes on the heels of reports from earlier this week from a Twitter user called Albacore, who uncovered a bunch of other features that Microsoft are working on, including things like desktop stickers, which we don't know too much about, but it does appear that Microsoft is laying the plumbing work for a sort of sticker feature which would allow you to place.
What does that mean?
Right. I think what it is they're going to literally be like PNGs that you can stick to your wallpaper on the desktop.
Really?
Yeah. I wouldn't even be surprised if there's a storefront to this, and there's a whole monetization plan in place for monetizing sticker packs and stuff. That
Why?
Microsoft. That's not me. I don't know anything. That's just me guessing. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't be. Could NFTs stickers?
Oh my
I don't know
God.
about NFTs, but that would be
actually thinking about
hilarious
that today, because like Microsoft stock is MSFT. It should be MSNFT. We should just start that company.
Yeah.
I was trying to wrap my head around this sticker thing, because we don't see what they are.
Right.
We just see the menu selection for this thing. And some people are like, maybe it's kind of like a widget thing where they're interactive.
Yeah. We don't know.
That gets CPU resource intensive. So I don't know
if
about
they were
that,
widgets, just call them widgets. I don't know why they would call them stickers at that point. I do think they would just be static sort of images that you can place onto your wallpaper. And maybe there'll be a storefront for them. Maybe there won't be. I genuinely don't know. But yeah, that does appear to be something they're at least experimenting with internally. I don't know if that will be showing up anytime soon, or maybe it will. I have not heard that it's in the builds yet internally, so maybe that's something for a later date. Also, things like system-wide dark mode, which I've sort of said many times is something they've been working on internally. That is also not in the builds internally yet. Maybe it will show up in the next few weeks. I don't know. But as far as I'm aware, development on that has slowed significantly. The last time I saw it, and this was a while ago, it was still unfinished, and I've not seen it since. So maybe that feature was postponed in favor of bringing other sort of vital functionality back to things like the taskbar. Who knows? But I would like to hopefully see that at some point as well. So yeah, that's basically the deep down, the inside look at what Microsoft is working on internally for Windows 11 over the next few weeks. Of course, the Insider program in the dev channel will get these sort of over time. And as Dan mentioned at the top of the show, there's this whole A/B type system as well, so not everybody will get them at once. And some of it may be in one build, and then the next week I'll have more of it, or maybe it'll be all in one build. I generally have no idea how they plan to unveil this all to insiders, but it should be within the next handful of weeks, I believe. So that's exciting. And you also mentioned.
Quick question. So Sarah's asking this, and I've always wondered too. Like, is there any rumors about the auto light to dark mode?
No, there isn't.
That is just common on every operating system in the world in 2022.
The problem with Windows is that the switch from light to dark is really clunky. It's not as seamless as you see it on Android and Mac OS and iOS. If you've done it, you can do it yourself. If you have a bunch of windows open and you switch from light to dark, you'll see that each window sort of does it on its one at a time, and it's not great. Power Toys, the people behind Power Toys, have looked into this, and they've still not implemented it, I think because Windows is still really bad at doing the switch. They could easily do it, right? I believe there are programs you can download that will do it for you at a set time. But
we've covered one before.
The experience just isn't great. So I think Microsoft needs to work on improving the actual switch that Windows does so it can apply it all at once. Because there'll be nothing worse than you doing work and then Windows freezes for a second as it switches to the opposite mode at a certain time of the day. So that's why I don't think it's there yet. But yeah, Microsoft definitely knows that that's a feature people want. As is system-wide dark mode, which applies itself to copy dialogues and the run box and all that other stuff, which hopefully will show up at some point. But yeah, that's basically everything regarding all the internal stuff. But now moving over to things that are public, Microsoft did release a new build for the beta channel and release preview channel. And this is the build that we expect will be what rolls out to the public later this month, that introduces things like the weather button, Android app support, the new Notepad and media player apps and all that other stuff. So Microsoft did announce a few weeks ago that would be happening this month. And now it's in the beta and release preview channels to test. So it's nice to see, as Dan mentioned, the weather button's now on the taskbar on the shipping build of Windows 11. We also have improvements all over the place, lots of fixes and stuff. And this is essentially like a mini sort of release midway through the life cycle of the first version of Windows 11. 22H2 is coming later this year, but that's a major release and that will have more stuff. But this is sort of like middle ground. Here's a little bit of that, but much earlier, which is cool to see as well. But then I think that's basically all of the Windows 11 stuff, unless you have anything else to add.
Did you mention about the release preview? And
Yes, I did just mention it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. Zoned out for a sec. Yeah, I really like having the little weather thing, and I like the hover
Yeah.
functionality.
Oh, you like it? I hate it when the auto hover.
So
Oh God.
I like it because it makes more sense when it's over on the left.
You think so?
So, so for those who don't know what we're talking about, if you're using Windows 11 right now, you're just on the production. You have like what are up to 4 locked icons on the taskbar. One is the Windows, one Start, one is the multi-window view, and then one is the widgets panel. And the problem with if you have hover over the widgets panel is because it's all crammed with all your other programs, stuff like that. Is like that's the one that like behaves differently.
Yeah.
Where everything else will give you a small little preview window. If you move your mouse over to the widget one, it's going to bring out the widgets and slide over. And a lot of people don't like that behavior. And I kind of agree because it's sort of, if it's stuck between other icons, it's just not expected. What happened with release preview this week, of course, is they moved the widget icon to the left, assuming you have your Start in the center. And by the way, it looks really funny on an ultra wide because it's like down at the other end of the hallway.
Yeah.
I have to like look down, like, oh, there's the weather. So you have a little weather icon now, which I love. It just shows a little icon, the temperature, and the current conditions. And honestly, it looks nice. It's glance and go. I'm like, oh, it's 51 out right now. And now when I hover over it, it brings up the whole widgets panel. But what I like about it is it's out of the way. Like you really have to move your mouse down to that end of the corner, the left corner of your PC. So you're not accidentally going to bring up the widgets thing. Like if you're heading down there and putting the mouse over it, it's probably purposeful. Like you're going to probably click it so you get the widgets panel, in which case they're just saving you the click. And I actually kind of think that makes more sense. It makes me actually kind of use it a little bit more often, which I think I like. But I think it's a better placement where it is. It's out of the way. And, I think this is a better choice than having it in the center where it was defaulted to. So
yeah,
there we go.
So yeah, that's all the Windows 11 news.
All right, let's move on to ARM and NVIDIA quickly. Not a lot to talk about here. So this deal was announced, oh my God, it was probably over a year ago, maybe a year ago, coming up on a year, that NVIDIA was going to acquire ARM. And actually, this is ARM capital A, then it's small r, small m.
Oh yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah, so this is ARM Limited, which is a physical company, versus the ARM processor, which is capital A, capital R, capital M. So if you don't know how this all works, ARM Limited is a simple company. Well, they're not simple, but they're a company that designs processors. They don't make processors. They don't brand processors. They actually don't make anything. They just design them, which is kind of weird when you think about it. And so what happens is Qualcomm then goes, we need a processor. And ARM's like, well, here's our new ones, our new designs. Qualcomm then buys those designs or licenses those designs from ARM. Then Qualcomm takes it, merges it with its own technology, its own platforms, its own GPUs, the Cairo and stuff like that, and the different layers that they put on there, the modems and the drivers. And then they put that all together. And then again, Qualcomm doesn't actually make anything either. Then it goes to TSMC, which is the actual foundry, who then actually makes the processors. And then those goes into your computers and phones. And this is basically how ARM works. And whether it's MediaTek or it's Qualcomm, a lot of companies license their stuff through ARM. Now, this company, like I said, doesn't make chips, but they design them. So NVIDIA was proposing to buy them. And then due to competition reasons, of course, it's just like when you're buying, gaming studios, Qualcomm would still need access to buy those licenses. Like NVIDIA couldn't buy ARM and just be like, aha, it's all ours now. No one can buy these. Because that's where you get into the regulatory challenges. They were still, and despite NVIDIA saying, no, we're going to keep everything as is, we're just going to use, but obviously NVIDIA was going to have a slight advantage because they're heavy into GPUs. They were already talking about merging RTX technology with ARM processing. So you get this like very powerful GPU technology along with ARM. And then NVIDIA has made ARM chips before, right? They did this themselves, the Tegra chips. They did the same thing. They licensed from ARM, then made their own chips. But there was pushback from governments and from a lot of companies too, including like Google. I believe Apple was in there because they were kind of concerned about this being in the hands of a company who has an active role in this business. And long story short, the deal's off. There was just going to be too many regulatory challenges. It didn't look like it was going to go through. And so it's not happening. NVIDIA's got to pay ARM now money.
Oh, really?
Because what happens is when you announce you're going to merge with a company or a company's going to acquire you, the stock price tends to go up because now it's going to be worth more because someone wants to buy it. And this is where insider trading gets involved, right? That's why you can't do that stuff if you're ahead of time. But what happened was the stock price of ARM went up through the roof on this news. And now that it's not happening, the stock price is going to drop because it's not going to be a part of NVIDIA. So there's a breakup fee that has to be paid, which is like I think $1.4 billion or something like that. It's not, yeah, it's a lot of money because they got to now make up for the loss in stock value that they've, from this failed deal. So what happens next? There's a lot of ideas being floating around, including making ARM a publicly traded company, because right now it's a private company. There's talk about listing on the New York Stock Exchange. This, it doesn't look like another company would step in and buy it. And this gets into what would be a good company to buy this. It can't be the FANG group, Facebook, Google, Apple. It can't be the big tech. It can't be Microsoft. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Microsoft should buy them. It wouldn't. First of all, doesn't really fit into Microsoft's business. They don't design chips, at least at this level. I know technically they have their research division that designs chips, but not like this. And then they would be they would have a weird position with Qualcomm because Qualcomm makes chips for them, for their devices, and they would be licensing. And then you get into would they give Qualcomm special deals on these chips? Would it get special favoritism, like Qualcomm's going to make special chips for Microsoft? So that would never happen. No one would be happy if Facebook bought them or Meta, as we call them. People would be outraged if Google bought them, same thing. So there's really, the only option would be if like some company you probably never heard of bought them, in which case it's sort of like, what would be the point? But it seems like the company would probably go public and it'll just continue functioning as is with probably new leadership on board, get a board of directors, a new board of directors, and that kind of thing. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Kind of a shame. It would have been interesting to see, like I said, NVIDIA do this with the RTX. They still could. No reason why NVIDIA can't license ARM chips and get involved. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue down that path because almost every company is investing in ARM at this point because it's considered to be that you need it, not just for computers and smartphones, but increasingly what are called edge devices, things that sometimes don't have displays. And this will get us into the HoloLens thing too. But those kind of devices, XR devices, are going to be the next big thing. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But kind of a big setback for NVIDIA, who, it's weird because Jensen Young, I can't even messing his name, but the CEO of NVIDIA, he's a really good CEO. They've made just outstanding moves. Their stock has been going through the roof, and they've just been absolutely crushing it. And this is kind of the first major setback they've had in many years. I think they'll be fine. They'll recover from it, but it's a bit of it does affect their strategic plans they had. But I guess we'll see what happens. So
yeah, well, that's a shame. Hopefully, it ends up in good hands, or if it goes public, then that doesn't go badly for them. I assume, can companies buy shares? I guess they can, right? So Microsoft could jump in, or even Apple, or anyone could.
Yeah, they may be able to be investors and stuff like that. I'm not really sure how that would work, but I think it being public, translating to it being basically neutral, or
Sure.
more neutral than it would be going, being taken over, I think is probably the right decision. The technology is just too important at this point. Although companies are increasingly going down the road of designing their own chips, Qualcomm is doing this, right? They bought Nuvia, ex-Apple engineers who are basically designing their own chips. And this is where Qualcomm is kind of hedging their bets here too, right? Because with the Nuvia stuff, they get ex-Apple engineers. These are the people who designed the M1 chips and the Apple chips for the iPhone. So they're going to get that. They're predicting these chips are going to beat Apple. And they're designed in-house. So take back what I said before, right? So these now will be designed by Qualcomm. They'd still be manufactured by TSMC, but now you've cut out ARM Limited from that equation, which saves them on their licensing fees. They would be licensing to themselves, basically. They've also noted, but we're keeping the door open with ARM. Like if ARM came out with a new chip design that was faster than ours, we would reserve the right to license that and make that chip as well. So they were trying to get more control of their destiny with the Nuvia stuff in case something happened like this, where ARM fell into a competitor's hands or a company like NVIDIA and things were left murky. So Qualcomm was kind of backing themselves up, as well as getting a chip what they think will beat Apple at its own game, which is super interesting. So
yeah,
but yeah. Do you want to catch us up on the Qualcomm stuff?
The HoloLens stuff. Yeah, we can start with that. So if you remember last week, we had a lengthy discussion about HoloLens 3, thanks to Business Insider, who wrote a report basically saying, the HoloLens 3 is dead and the whole mixed reality vision is in shambles. And that led us on a long conversation about, Microsoft throwing away its lead and, them, because the original report also mentioned that a lot of people on the HoloLens team were upset that there was a partnership between Samsung and Microsoft in mixed reality that's supposed to be coming in the next couple of years. And we were confused by that. Why would they be angry? If Samsung was to use your mixed reality platform, that can be nothing but a good thing. And then literally about 2 hours after that, we finished recording the podcast. Business Insider published a follow-up report, which sort of went into a bit more details. They immediately opened their second report with sort of refuting Alex Kipman's claims that HoloLens 3 wasn't dead. Remember, if we talked about this last week, he came out and tweeted that, the last time I checked, HoloLens 2 was supposed to be cancelled, but we shipped that with success. So Business Insider basically said, he's talking a lot of crap. We went back to our sources. We asked them is HoloLens 3 cancelled, and they came back with an actual quote from one of their sources. If I can find it, give me a sec. I know what it says. I can't find it now. Basically, the quote was, and now I'm paraphrasing because I can't find the quote. They said, "Make no mistake, Calypso is cancelled." Or Calypso was cancelled. Calypso being the code name for HoloLens 3. And that's the sort of Business Insider going, hey, we know what we're talking about. Here's the code name, which if you're a Microsoft journalist or whatever, you can sort of go and try and verify that. I was able to verify it. Calypso is the real code name. They didn't just make that up. So yeah, they sort of know what they're talking about. And remember, they had 20 plus sources telling them that the HoloLens 3 wasn't happening. And that the division was basically in shambles. Then they went on to talk a little bit more about the Samsung partnership. Now, the Samsung partnership between Microsoft and Samsung leaked last year, I think December last year. So Business Insider wasn't the first to report on it, but they did add a little bit more info to what that partnership entails. So essentially, it's a mixed reality device. I believe it's an AR headset. Or maybe it's VR, I'm genuinely not sure, that Samsung is building that connects to a Samsung phone in your pocket, which suggests that Windows isn't involved at all. Now, the outrage that Business Insider are reporting on regarding the HoloLens team not liking the partnership makes sense. Windows isn't in the picture. This is an Android device, essentially. Microsoft's involvement is still murky. I assume they're helping design the headset because, Microsoft has the expertise to do an augmented reality device. And Samsung, I'm sure they do as well, but working together means they can do something better, I imagine. But it doesn't appear that Microsoft software is involved. Now, the report isn't in depth, so we don't actually know that for sure. But it is looking like Windows isn't involved, and that puts the Windows' future in the AR space into doubt. Essentially, if HoloLens 3 is cancelled, which it does appear to be, where does Windows fit in this next paradigm shift? And the answer is it probably doesn't. It doesn't look like there's a future for Windows in the AR space outside of the HoloLens line. Now, the report does mention that Microsoft internally is thinking about a cloud, an edge-based headset that would connect to the cloud and stream data to a set of glasses or whatever it may end up being. Again, the details on that thing is very light. We don't know if it's actually a greenlit product. It could just be a concept or an idea internally. And we also don't know what that would run. Would it run Windows? Would it stream Windows? Like, well, what's going on there? We don't know. So basically, their second report comes down to Windows in the AR space is probably not happening. Microsoft is going to help Samsung build its vision with Android, and who knows what the future holds for edge computing in the headset space. So it's bad news for Windows fans. We were talking last week about how surely Microsoft wouldn't want to make the same mistake it made with Windows Phone. They would want to have Windows at the forefront. They want to be there early. And it turns out Microsoft doesn't really want Windows there at all by the looks of things. And that's a real shame. So Microsoft doesn't want... It's almost like Microsoft doesn't want to be in charge of a platform anymore. They're happy to sort of jump on other people's platforms, Android, iOS, or whatever, and just build apps for them rather than have its own platform and be the people who make those decisions and app stores and all that stuff. Yeah, I don't understand it. I really don't. But the outrage that Business Insider were reporting on regarding the team members being upset at the partnership does make sense now. And it's a real shame for Windows fans. But what can you do at this point? It's just a shame.
Yeah, it's a very confusing thing. We should caution that there is still a lot of info we don't know about this. Microsoft did just recently announce a partnership with Qualcomm regarding processors for XR devices. We don't know what they're cooking up, and there's a lot to unpack with this. There is this question about, like, first of all, we got to separate things. And let's talk about Apple for a second, because people confuse this all the time. They're like, oh, Apple's coming out with their new glasses by the end of the year and a game over and all that. There are at least 2 devices Apple's working on, technically 3. The third one, though, is so far out. It's contact lenses, right? They want contact lenses with augmented reality. Listen, that will absolutely happen. There's a lot of research being done on this. They're already doing it in labs and on this. But we're talking, I would say at least 10 years before that's a reality, right? Maybe longer. But that is the long-term goal of mobile technology, is that they'll just have contact lenses. You've seen this in movies, right? It's like people have had this idea for a long time. So that's like the third stage. The first stage, which may ship in 2022, specifically at the end of the year, is the latest rumor. Probably not more until 2023. And even then, it's supposed to be mostly for developers, although I guess technically anyone may be able to buy it. Maybe developers at first, 2022, later in 2023, maybe they'll open it up more. That device is supposed to be a mixed reality / virtual reality device. It's not going to be elegant. I mean, it'll be Apple elegant. Don't get me wrong. It'll look nice, but they're basically the render that came out that supposedly is what it looks like. Kind of looks like ski goggles.
Right.
It's a big thing you put on. It's going to have a self-contained processor. It's very much in the HoloLens design, where it's going to be kind of a big thing, like a VR, a Quest headset that you put on, and you'd use it in your living room. It'll be standalone. You wouldn't have wires, but you're not going to be walking out to your car and going to the mall, walking down the city streets with these things on. It's meant to be used like in the living room. It'll probably focus heavily on gaming as well as consuming content, which Apple's very good at. That's the reason why Zach and I don't use iPads. If you just consume content, iPads are amazing. This is going to be kind of the same device. You'd be able to watch your Netflix, probably do all the stuff that we've already done with VR and Daydream and all these kind of devices in the past, where you have like a virtual room and you can go watch a movie and all this kind of stuff. That's going to be the first device. The exception is it'll have sensors on it. So what makes it different from like the VR stuff, it'll have like sensors in it to mix, what's in your room, and the lenses may be kind of opaque, right? So you can get a little bit of both. We don't really know, but it's going to be mixed reality along with virtual reality, and it's going to be an entertainment device. That's supposed to be around $2,000, right? And this is what I've been saying for a long time. Why with HoloLens 3, if there ever was one, and why HoloLens as is a complicated concept to bring to consumers, because what makes HoloLens amazing is it's a self-contained Windows PC, all on your head. Processor, RAM, storage, Wi-Fi. You just put this thing on and it's cool. That also makes it, one, tremendously expensive. It's over $3,000 because you need all that silicon, which is not cheap, especially to miniaturize it and get it that efficient. Plus, you got the lenses and all that kind of stuff. It also makes it bigger and heavier. Now, HoloLens 2, Zach and I both tried it on, is ridiculously comfortable, actually, especially compared to the first one, because it did such a good job of balancing and stuff like that. It's still big, right? It's still a big device to put on your head that you wouldn't want to. Actually, you could probably wear HoloLens 2 for a lot longer than HoloLens 1. But still, it's going to be like not something you go to your car with or you're going to walk out on a date wearing, because it's just a thing. The next device Apple supposedly wants to do, which again makes sense because this is where the industry is headed, won't ship until some are saying 2024 or 2025. Now, this is more similar to what North was doing. It was called Focals, where they have these kind of like glasses, it had a heads-up display in them. Google bought that company. So if you think of what Google Glass kind of was doing and what Focals was doing, this is really, in my opinion, the real big tech innovation that's going to happen in the next 10 years. These are going to be glasses you put on, like sunglasses, that have a heads-up display in them. And I keep hitting my microphone. And as you walk around, it will show information from your smartphone. And what makes them comfortable and light and cost efficient is they don't have standalone processor, RAM, storage, and all this other stuff. They'll have like little microprocessors, obviously, but it's going to be your phone is the computer. Because why would you make people have two computers? You already have one in your pocket and one on your head. Here's the problem with HoloLens, and Zach knows this. You boot it up for the first time. Zach, how fun is it to log into all your applications again on HoloLens?
Yeah,
that first time. It's kind of tedious.
Yeah,
because it is a standalone computer. You need to set it up like a standalone computer. And once it's set up, guess what? It has actually no connection to the phone in your pocket, which doesn't make it that useful. Whereas what we're talking about, augmented reality, so AR, is going to be this next big milestone. You'll have your phone in your pocket, basically a heads-up display that can also have sensors on it and interact with the world. Apple's already toying with this. A lot of developers are toying with this stuff with Apple already. You can have like a QR code on the wall. The lens picks it up and then brings whatever the thing is to life and becomes like an animated thing, right? There's stuff like that. There's going to be, I've mentioned this idea in the past where Microsoft could hook LinkedIn up to visual recognition. So when you're talking to someone at a conference, it looks them up, shows their LinkedIn thing. You got their name, their bio, and all this kind of stuff just showing up in your reticle. That actually is tremendously useful. It's one reason I think Microsoft bought LinkedIn is for all that information. That device is supposed to be around $500. So you see the difference?
Right.
That's going to be marketed as an iPhone accessory. And I would imagine with the Apple Watch, it could serve as an input device. Like there's no reason why they couldn't turn the Apple Watch into a little mouse pad. Then you have a little cursor on it. You just move your
I'm sure if, as the Apple Watch gets more powerful, it might even just be powered by the Apple Watch rather than the phone.
Sure.
That could be an end goal for them as well.
Yep. Someone's saying, I'm guessing HoloLens 2 doesn't have Windows Hello. False. It does. It does iris recognition.
Yeah.
Yep. So you can give it to other people and log into their account just by putting it on. It's actually very cool. But so that's Apple's plan. So we're still far out, in my opinion, from what is this killer category. And I know a lot of people have like this, like, yeah, but no one's done AR. Like no one's done AR yet. I should point out, like, this vision, no one's executed it. Even Focals by North was literally just a heads-up display.
Yeah.
It just gave you notifications and some information like Google Maps. You'd be walking around, it would show you that and all that. It was cool, but it didn't interact with your environment where this stuff would. So that is supposedly Apple's plans for this stuff. It's where everybody's heading. Facebook Meta knows this, right? So I linked in the comments, Meta has gone on record. We believe this is going to replace the smartphone in 10 years. Apple has said, we believe this is going to replace the smartphone in 10 years. And I don't mean replace, as in they don't exist anymore. I mean, they replace as your primary input of the device.
Yes.
You're going to put these things on, and it's going to give you you'll pull the phone out every once in a while. You'll need to do selfies, right? You'll maybe want the better camera, but you're going to be wearing this all the time. It'll be giving you information like all the time. Microsoft believes this. Alex Kipman has gone on record saying, I believe this technology will replace your smartphone as your primary device. Like everybody who's in this space is predicting in 10 years, this is where the industry moves. So that's Apple. Samsung obviously needs something in that space too. And that's where the Samsung partnership comes into play with Microsoft. Microsoft has a very good history with HoloLens, at least in the sensors, the technology, the cloud, how the anchoring, the Azure anchors, how it all interacts with the environment. They already have that tech. So Microsoft teaming up with Samsung, the #1 maker of Android devices outside of China in the world, to make a wearable headset that would also launch around 2024 makes a ton of sense. It saves Samsung the R&D. Microsoft gets to have something that they launch with a supplier who can actually ship this stuff globally. So I think that's very interesting. That said, I don't know what Microsoft gets out of this deal.
Right. Yeah.
Zach just pointed out like this wouldn't be Windows AR. So what happens with Windows AR? In Windows Mixed Reality? We don't know at this point. Did everything they just build up for the last 7 years, including their development program for external research and developers to make apps for this stuff, is that just gone? And, totally. Yeah, I get they gained experience in building it. They know how to build these things now, but now they have to switch it all to Android. That may actually be the right decision in the long term. I'm not necessarily against it. I'm not happy it took them 7 years to figure this out.
Right.
Because that says that they invested a lot of money into this and now have to backtrack. So I don't know what Microsoft gets out of this with Samsung. Like, are they building an Android platform that Samsung gets to use, but then they can also license it to themselves for, I don't know, Surface Duo? What's Surface Duo's role in this, if at all? Could another company like OnePlus get on board and license this technology? We don't know. So I don't know what Microsoft gets out of this. And I think this is where that divisions came from, that's supposedly inside. Microsoft at one point had HoloLens, their own hardware, their own technology, had its own software that controlled it. They were going from that to what? No HoloLens, no own hardware, and not even their own operating system anymore.
Right. Yeah, and it does make sense as to why people would be upset at that internally. And it's also really funny, as you mentioned, these glasses in the future from Samsung and Apple will be powered by the phone. Isn't it a real shame that Microsoft killed off its phone division, essentially, had Windows on the phone, all that's gone. And, funnily enough, everything comes back to the death of Windows Phone. That's the pivotal point where Microsoft's, future as a platform maker was in other, PCs, of course, Microsoft will always have that. But in future sort of form factors and devices, AR, which I believe could be the next paradigm shift, Microsoft won't have a footing there because they don't have Windows phones anymore, and they can't make that accessory powered by Windows. They have to partner with Samsung because Samsung has the phones and they have the Android platform. I mean, technically Android's Google's, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah, it is a real shame that that short-sighted decision to kill off Windows Phone in 2017. Is coming back to bite them in more ways than one. And it is a shame. But again, there's nothing you can do at this point. It will be interesting to see what Samsung and Microsoft are able to cook up with whatever this Samsung device ends up being. Hopefully there will be tie-ins with the Windows /Surface /Microsoft ecosystem. I'm sure they'll there'll be some software sort of partnership there as well, where you can get Microsoft apps preloaded on the glasses or whatever, and Microsoft may build be the first to build AR apps for Android using the Samsung headset, stuff like that. I'm not sure, that's just guessing. But yeah, Windows itself does appear to not be the future for this, for Microsoft. They certainly appear to have pivoted to, keep in mind they are still working on the military headset. That's still in development. That is behind schedule, but that is still in development, and they do intend to ship that. But that, I believe, or at least as the report suggests, is the only thing that they're working on now. There's no HoloLens 3 for businesses. There's no consumer HoloLens coming. Whatever Microsoft is working on is either the military thing, or they're working with Samsung on this Android headset. So there you are. That is the update on HoloLens. It is a real shame for Windows fans, I think. But yeah, who knows what the future holds at this point.
Yeah, like I said, there's still just so many questions. Like, what happens to companies and schools that are using HoloLens 2 right now?
Right. I assume Microsoft will support the HoloLens, because they supported Windows Phone for 2-3 more years after it died.
But it's like, if you're investing in it,
sure,
it's a tough story to tell. Be like, invest in this, but it's a dead end. Like we're not going to really introduce more stuff to it, and the product line, there's nothing going to replace it. Like, is that really the story they're going to go with? Like, that seems like you can do it. Microsoft has clearly done it in the past.
Yeah, like maybe every few years they just get a new processor and a little bit more power to keep it current. Like, maybe this suggests that the HoloLens division never made any money, so it doesn't make sense for Microsoft to keep doing that. I don't know. Like, we just don't know. But you're totally right. Like, what happens in 4 or 5 years? All of these enterprises and whoever who deployed these headsets, do they get something else that they can upgrade to, or is that the end of that? It is a weird question, and I assume Microsoft would have to sort of supply them with hardware, but who knows? Genuinely, who knows at this point?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a ton of questions there that need to be answered. There's also this rumored concept that they're just starting to work on, which again makes a ton of sense, which is an edge device. So the only thing cooler, I guess, than having your AR glasses powered by your phone is having AR glasses that are connected to the internet themselves through 5G, or maybe at this point 6G if we're a few years out. And the operating system and everything is streamed to it. Now, we already see Microsoft has Windows 365. You can literally stream Windows to any PC. That's out right now. You can get it's mostly, obviously, enterprise, but it's a thing. Obviously, game streaming is currently live, and that's a thing. So what would be the benefit of streaming an operating system to AR glasses? Well, you could get server level performance streamed to your device, right? Like, you could literally have the power of like Xeon processors and everything, but just handled remotely. This is the same reason why there's a lot of this stream. Like, HP has a program where you can do like 3D CAD on hosted servers that's streamed to your ZBook, right? It's the same reason. ZBooks are very powerful, not as powerful as a whole server though. So you can get this idea of like in streaming AR and have like a full operating system that way. Still a ton of questions about how that would operate. But what makes that concept interesting is that could actually be your next PC. Like, it's not just now like AR glasses, like this is augmenting your phone. These would be glasses you put on, and it's Windows 11 or Windows 12 at that point. Similar to what we've talked about previously with Lenovo's Think Reality A3 glasses, which I mentioned were, I showed them on the podcast. You put these glasses on, you connect them up to a laptop, and what they do is create virtual displays for your windows. So you look up, and you can have like 5 virtual displays in Windows, and you just mouse around, and they're just like floating in space, right? The problem with Lenovo's execution, it's not really their fault, just the limit of the technology, is you have to plug it into a pretty beefy laptop. Like, it needs a very strong GPU. You need at least a 45-watt CPU. Like, it requires a lot of processing power to do that today. But it's cool. But what's weird about it is, like, you're wearing this, you have like floating virtual displays, and you have your main display in front of you. Like, what happens if you could just have the keyboard and that and maybe that's connected to 5G or something like that. You just have the keyboard and trackpad, no display. You put these things on, and the whole operating system is going through that and being streamed to it. And that's your main computer. Now you just have a keyboard and some glasses. And when you put these things on, you can have like, I don't know, 6 floating virtual displays and work in an environment. Like that makes a ton of sense for Microsoft to pursue. It would still take a while to get there. But again, if you're really thinking long term, that makes a lot more sense as this technology improves. The Lenovo version, it's like, I believe, I'm not even sure if it's full HD or 720p, the resolution. I got to catch up on it. But the resolution is like not as good as we can get on like a 4K laptop right now. But and you still have the field of view limitations, which is constantly being improved. But as that stuff does improve, can you imagine in the future that is your computer, right? And then when you leave work, you take those off and put your Apple glasses on or your Samsung glasses on, right? Like I could actually see that as being a thing for them. Now, we don't know the status of that program. Right. We don't know how far along they are, if that's what they're thinking. But all I know is this field, this AR stuff is going to be the next big thing. And there are challenges there, including, a lot of people have this like what I call failure of imagination, which is like, yeah, but what would you use it for? Like, I get that. But once you start shipping devices out, like put it this way, when the smartphone came out, like GPS was barely a thing. Like a GPS was just coming on. It was assisted. It had to use a cell tower, so it wasn't that accurate. But there was like no Google Maps. And when there was Google Maps, it didn't work with the phone. Like it didn't work with a GPS. This is a long thing. We used to have pocket PCs. You can put mapping software on there, but you would have to use like an external GPS card to go into the device. It couldn't work with the cellular and connect to satellites. I wrote one of my first articles I wrote for WM Experts, our old branding of the site, was about this issue and about how this tech. So what I'm saying was this idea of like looking up directions and mapping and going to a place or using Yelp. Hey, what's the cool restaurants in my area? That did not exist. No one had invented that yet. And no one was thinking about that necessarily with smartphones at the time because the actual ability to do it wasn't present. As smartphones evolved, as AGPS improved, and eventually we went to connecting through satellites. That technology came available, and then people started coding software for it. So I'm saying, but no one envisioned the smartphone as being a pocketable map thing that was going to show you, one where your friend is maybe, or give you, or like I could send Zach, I'm leaving my house, follow me, and send him a thing, and it'll track my car as I'm driving on the highway with real-time speed. Like none of that stuff existed, and no one was thinking, oh yeah, that's what we're going to use smartphones for. Just like no one thought, oh, smartphones? Yeah, so people are going to use that to take high-resolution photos of their food and then post it on a social network, which are just photos of people doing just dumb stuff every day. Like, that wasn't a concept then. So I'm saying with these glasses, I know it's hard to wrap your head around, like, yeah, but what are you going to be using them for? I guarantee you, people will come up with cool stuff you can do with it as the sensors become available, as the technology improves. So I'm very excited about this, but I don't know. Does Microsoft go into the consumer space? Jez Corden wrote a really good editorial talking about gaming. If you're going to be talking about this stuff, you got to bring gaming into it. And so far, Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, has been like, he's not really against VR. He's just against where it is today. He doesn't feel it's mature enough.
He doesn't like cables.
Right. Doesn't like cables. But like, this is what we mentioned last week. Like, if you're going to do this, you need the Surface team involved, you need the HoloLens team involved, and you need the Xbox team involved, even if they're going to be like, we're going to be on the sidelines for a little while.
And you need a platform.
And you need a platform. But they really need to get all these groups together and come up with a killer device. I don't know. It may be even too late at this point. My worry here is the Windows Phone stuff. Mm-hmm. Windows Phone have the same issue. And I know people are like, Nadella, killed it. I keep bringing up the quotes from Ballmer, who says his number one regret was not investing more into Windows Mobile early on. He says we missed that. We were too focused on Windows Desktop, and we missed that whole thing. And I said before, they had mobile, they didn't invest in it, and they just thought they already had the market, and they clearly didn't. And then it got stolen from them. Bill Gates' biggest regret was the licensing model. He says we shouldn't have been charging companies. We should have done the Android route. That should have been us. And his biggest regret, and this is all on record, he said in 2019, Ballmer's was, I think, from 2015 or 14. It was right when he was kind of leaving. So they know that it was their fault that they set up Windows Mobile to be, it was always going to be behind. And then once you're behind in a field, it's very difficult to catch up. Bill Gates described mobile as being a winner take all. And that's really kind of what it was, right? There's room for two. There really does not appear to be room for three. And I think the market clearly spoke on that. And can Microsoft be a third when it comes to AR? Especially now you got Facebook, Meta, Google, you have Apple, you got Samsung in there. Like, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Do you think Microsoft should come out and set the record straight, even though they never would?
They never would. I mean, yeah, I do think they should, but they won't. I think whenever somebody asks me, should Microsoft be more transparent, I always say yes, because they do need to be more transparent. But for whatever reason, Microsoft to this day thinks that they don't have to be, and they can lie and just be quiet and not say anything. And that's just the way they do things. And that's why we have jobs, because we have to be the ones who dig for this information to tell the people what they're actually doing, because Microsoft never really likes to talk about it. So thanks, Microsoft, for giving me a job.
It's unfortunate, because if you're an investor...
Oh, I know, right?
I got into a fight with someone in the comments about this. He's like, oh, the fans only think Microsoft should be doing consumer stuff. I'm like, why are you talking about the fans? Who cares what the fans think? No offense to people listening to this podcast. No one cares what fans think about this technology. What investors should care, I get it. Microsoft's making a ton of money, doing very well in all these other aspects of the industry. But there's a huge growth market coming with this technology. Yeah. Why shouldn't Microsoft be there to bring in more money as for investors? Like at what point does a company go, oh, we're making a ton of money, we don't actually need to do this because we're doing all right? Like, that's weird. That's not how companies work. As an investor, you're like, no, go into this growth market and go in there and kill it and bring us even more money. That's how this stuff works. I don't know. It's like investors care about this. People who cover technology care about this stuff. I don't really care what fans think about this, because I get the consensus is go read the papers. 10 years, smartphones, AR, like, it's all out there. The entire industry is pivoting towards this, sinking billions into this technology, because that's where it's going to go. It's going to be weird. A lot of people think it'll be weird in 15 years that we're going to have all these physical screens around us versus having smart glasses. Right. And I think they're right, because it's going to look weird. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but we'll see where the podcast is in 10 years. So
we're going to be like an AR podcast. You can actually go into a virtual room and you can sit in front of us.
Of course.
And then you can watch us. Yeah,
we've toyed with that idea. Didn't we were toying that with when Microsoft bought AltSpace VR?
Yeah.
Like,
we could do it.
Doing a virtual podcast.
We could do it.
Yeah.
We should look into
that. I mean, that is like stuff that will be happening. There's that whole social aspect and holoportation. I mean, Microsoft was talking about those ideas a long time ago. I think it's going to be increasingly important. I think AR is the big thing. VR and mixed reality will play a role, but like I said, it'll be entertainment in your living room. More in depth, if you do want to do like the Second Life stuff and the metaverse and all that kind of stuff, I think it will be. But I think AR is going to be the real one that people put on every day and use every day and really enhances lives and stuff like that. And then we can have that Black Mirror episode where you downvote people in real life.
Yeah.
Right. If you guys haven't seen that Black Mirror episode, it uses visual recognition. And when you see someone, it does like what I was saying before, it brings up their info and all that. You can, like, if someone's rude to you or behaves a certain way, you can literally downvote them. And if you get downvoted too much, it starts affecting like your credit and like your ability to get jobs or maintain a job, because you're basically seen as like this person that no one likes. It's like it's the ultimate form of cancel culture.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
pretty scary stuff.
There's that
But
scene. There's that scene where the guy's like, "Hey," he's like trying to hand out cakes and stuff. He's trying to be really nice, and he's like, because his score is really low, and him doing that is just really annoying. So people very downright him know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting stuff. I can't wait to see where this tech goes. I hope Microsoft plays a role in it. All I know is if you're an investor in Microsoft, it just looks bad. It looks like, I don't care if you think it's a good decision, they should do consumer, they shouldn't do consumer. I don't forget about that. Right now, it looks like that division's a complete mess. It looks like it's mismanaged. It looks like they're wasting billions of dollars. And it looks like they don't have a clear vision for this technology. That's all bad. It's bad, bad, bad. If some of that information is incorrect, Microsoft needs to, at some point in the next year, do an AR mixed reality thing. Be like, it could even be a sizzler, just like, this is where we envision this technology going. This is stuff we're working on. We're not announcing a product today. That's fine. Don't announce the product. But they could do that if they wanted to and get and be like, we got this. We're firing on all cylinders. I think they should do that for investors. We'll see what happens. All right, let's move on quickly. Snapdragon chipset, 8CX. New benchmarks apparently leaked. This was done by WinFuture DE, the German site. So there's not a lot to report here. Well, so I guess one of the things is the device, this was reported on Geekbench, popular benchmarking software. The big thing was the name of the model of the device. It's like OEM VL, product name EV2. And Zach, you kind of know about this equipment verification testing, EVT level, and EV2, and these different like kind of codes that are used that signify. And apparently this signifies it's an early prototype of a device.
A Surface
and
device.
This has been like, yeah, and like that kind of coding has been what previous Surface devices have used. So, and it's using the Snapdragon 8CX Gen 3, which, you know, if a new Pro X came out, that's what it would be. The benchmarks the benchmarks aren't news to me, in my opinion, because we've had benchmarks leaked. So the 8CX Gen 3 was already announced. It was announced in December. I teased a bunch about that coming out a bunch of times on this podcast. It's an 85% performance improvement. So this is actually a generational shift over the 8CX Gen 1 and Gen 2. Gen 2 was literally like they tweaked it. They turned a little screw. It went slightly faster. This is a completely different architecture. Even though it shares the same name, it's a massive jump in performance, 85% overall. The benchmarks leaked in November and even earlier than that. In fact, 10 months ago, I think we had benchmarks. Wow. Yeah, March. So they've been testing this for a while. And the benchmarks always come in the same range. It's always around 1,000 for single core and around 5,000, 5,500 for multi-core. That gives you around a 11th Gen Core i5 performance for single core, but closer to a Core i7 11th Gen for multi-core because they have more cores on their chips. So that's actually supposed to be very good performance. Now, is this Surface Pro X2 what we would call, because it be a proper upgrade? Or is this something else? Zach, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't think it's the Surface Pro X. Now, don't get me wrong. We do believe the Pro X will be an 8CX Gen 3 based device. They'll likely call it the SQ3. They might call it something new. We don't know. But that will sort of be based on that architecture. However, considering how early this benchmark is and it's branded Surface and whatnot, I think this might be something else. I have heard, and I have sort of hinted at on the podcast a number of times at this point, but I have heard that Microsoft is planning to ship a Surface ARM dev kit this year, as soon as this spring, maybe early summer. The first half of this year, I believe they're going to announce an ARM dev kit powered by the Snapdragon 8CX Gen 3. In fact, it has a code name. I know all about the code name. I sort of know what it looks like as well. I'm not going to talk about that too much today, but essentially, yeah, they are working on a dev kit, which I believe, I think it would make sense for them to announce that at Build. They could announce it sooner than that. I don't know when they plan to announce it. Just the first half of this year, I've been told. And that's designed really to allow developers to build apps for ARM. It's supposed to be this sort of high-end dev kit that developers can buy and compile their apps, either using the ARM64 EC thing that they announced, or compiling completely for ARM if they wanted to do that as well. And it's supposed to be part of this whole commitment to ARM. Like, hey, we are serious about ARM. Here's a dev kit from us, from Microsoft. Here's a Surface dev kit with ARM. And please build for it, to sort of get app developers to compile for that architecture. So that's what I think this could be, especially considering it doesn't appear to have any additional tweaks and stuff, right? Oh, can Geekbench even detect that? Because I know the SQ line usually takes the Snapdragon and then overclocks the GPU, right? Or they tweak it slightly to make it a little bit more powerful in one area.
They sometimes use a different GPU and give it a different numbering system, but from what I understand, they're not really numbering Cairo anymore, so it's kind of a moot point. So I don't really think this is going to. I mean, I've always joked around that the SQ stuff has always just been a marketing thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's technically slightly faster, like if you can actually just benchmark it, but is it significant?
It hasn't been before.
No, not in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I always take a faster processor, especially with ARM, but like, is this something you're going to feel when you use? It's going to be noticeable? No. The one thing I do like about Microsoft's implementation of ARM, and this is like a total nerd thing, is they actually have the battery slider to jack up the performance. So you can actually go to performance mode or battery saver and all that. Every other ARM device doesn't really do that. It just has one fixed frequency. Or not frequent. I mean, it does scale up and down, but there's no way to kind of ramp up things. But Microsoft always had like a way to sort of tweak it up a little bit, mostly because they're always doing a more premium device in a lot of ways. I don't really think there's even question about if Microsoft is going to call this SQ3. They may just call it ACX Gen 3 and get away from it because it's just kind of meaningless at this point, but we'll see.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I think this is. I think this could be the dev kit. I think it's likely, considering that it's supposed to be here with us within the next 5 months. So yeah, and again, like I said, there is a Pro X with a Snapdragon 8cx Gen 3 planned. Again, we don't know if that'll be branded as Q3 or whatever, but that is planned for the fall. That's not planned for the spring. But this dev kit, we do believe, will be sort of sometime in the first half of this year.
And that can make sense, if they're going to announce something around Mobile World Congress, it would actually make sense because it's not going to be a big consumer thing, but at least still news that could be announced with Qualcomm. Not even Microsoft would necessarily do like a press event or anything like that, but they could, Qualcomm could have Microsoft on stage and they could show it off and blah, blah, blah. So that's one option. And as you mentioned, this could actually be the new Pro X. But if it is, don't expect that to the fall. It won't be announced this spring or at Mobile World Congress and won't be in your hands anytime soon, which is unfortunate because I'm still, well, we'll see. I believe other companies will have devices out with ARM. Mobile World Congress is right around the corner. I don't think HP does too much at Mobile World Congress. I'm not sure about Dell. Lenovo usually does because Lenovo just is constantly launching things, and they have so many different devices, and they're in different markets. They do Chrome, of course, Chrome OS, and they do Windows. So they may have something there. We'll have to wait and see. But I think usually on average per generation of a Qualcomm for Windows chip, we get 2 to 3 devices for that generation. So basically SQ2, I believe, had 2 or 3 devices. HCX Gen 2 had like 2 or 3. Gen 1 had 2 or 3. And that's usually what you're seeing. It's like Lenovo will come out with something. Samsung would have a device maybe, and then Microsoft. Then every once in a while, HP will step in with the device, and then Asus will come in. And I think we'll continue to see that. I'm still wondering if Dell's one of the few, the big 3 that hasn't done a Windows on ARM device yet. They know about it. They're evaluating it as they tell me, but they're not quite ready there to put out a device. But I'm ready there to try out a Dell device with ARM, but we may have to wait a little longer. Lenovo is the one that does the, I've said this on prior podcasts. They're the gutsiest OEM, maybe because they're the largest and they have just a ton of money, but they're like, foldable PC, dual screen PC, like PC with an e-ink keyboard, PC with an e-ink exterior display, PC with an 8-inch display in the keyboard deck. Like they have their wireless charger now for PCs. Like they just do some really wacky stuff and aren't afraid to basically do R&D and the public. So I think they're going to be an interesting company to watch in this space, but we'll see. Hopefully more. I'm very excited about the SQ3. I think it could be a very exciting chip. It's going to be a fun year. You have SQ3 coming out for you ARM fans. You have 12th gen, which is already kind of now starting to ship with the H series, but the P and U series will start shipping in a couple months. You have AMD with the Ryzen 6000, which stuff I've seen is going to be a very interesting chip. They've done a lot on the battery and efficiency end and their GPU stuff. I think we're going to start to see some wild computers. And plus, that can finally get his XPS 13 Plus, hopefully in a couple months.
That's looking good. The laptop studio has made me love 14-inch laptops. I think 13 is too small now. That's
absolutely
problem that I have the 13 Plus.
I think Dell was the one that told me that 14, this was a year or two ago, 14 was the most popular size outside the US, but the US was still like in the 13 was selling. Yeah. But now that they're switching to 16 by 10 and 3 by 2, it's changing the game up. Mm-hmm. But you're starting to see more 14-inch. I mean, the big thing for this year, of course, is you're seeing 14, but you're also seeing 16-inch now. 16-inch is the new 16-inch, 16 by 10 is the new stuff you're starting to see, because it's a massive screen, but it's only the size. It's the size of a 15-inch.
Yeah,
was a couple of years ago, but that 15-inch was the size of a 16-inch. So this is actually more like what a 17-inch was like 4 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
But because the bezels are so thin and the chassis is smaller, you're just getting a lot of screens. So I think 16-inch is going to become like kind of the new 15 basically, which I'm all here for. Yes to 16 by 10. It's so good. All right. I guess, do we have bits and bobs? What can we talk about here? There was, Jez did a good editorial. He was very busy editorializing this week about why Kinect was good. There, I said it. And this is gonna be this is like Windows Phone, right? This is an ongoing debate. So I think there's no controversy here. We all agree Kinect was way ahead of its time. It has some amazing gaming software. I talk about I forgot the name of it now. It's called Evolution. I tweeted about it. It was a fitness program. It would use the Kinect. You'd stand in front of it, put your arms out. It would scan your body, kind of get like you put in your weight and all this kind of stuff. And then you would do exercises in your living room, and it saw your form and would tell you if you're in and out of form, like if you're doing burpees and like these different types of movements. And it's exactly where we are today with things like Mirror. If you don't know, Mirror is it's literally a mirror you buy for your wall, but it's a smart mirror. It has cameras in it, and you can it has a screen and all this kind of stuff. It's very expensive and cool. But if you think about like what they were doing in 2012 and 2013, like you had this sensor in your living room that detected your body, it could scan you. They could even do body fat now with this stuff, and like give you feedback on your exercise. And so we all agree this technology was cool, it was fun, it was ahead of its time and very useful, but the execution of it was bad. It was just, and I don't really blame Microsoft too much. There were two issues. One, they pivoted too much towards Kinect as well as TV stuff with the new Xbox, and not enough on gaming, the actual gaming stuff, which is where PlayStation was leaning heavy into. And on top of that, it was $100 more. So Kinect was mandatory, which I get because it got more people to get Kinect. But that $100 difference became such a talking point. It was just like, but just get PlayStation. It's got more games and it's $100 cheaper. And PlayStation, I think at the time, was also supposed to be more performance and faster and could do more. Microsoft also was contending with the Xbox was going to be always on and connected to the internet and verify your games. And there was the privacy stuff. It was like all of these, it was like 10 issues that clouded the launch of this device. And Kinect eventually became just like this casualty. It was a shame they didn't make it I think maybe they did eventually make it optional and
They
all
did
this kind of stuff.
eventually, yeah. What they should have done is they should have eaten that cost. If they really wanted to
Yeah.
make Kinect a requirement, they should have been like,
Yeah.
even if it was just for a limited time during the pre-order phase, you can have the Xbox One for $399 with Kinect, and after pre-orders, it's $499. But yeah, like they should have done something there, because either that or don't make Kinect required. That was the other, and they eventually did do that, but it was like over a year later, I think. So it was like a moot point at that point. But I guess the problem they had was game developers are like, if you want us to develop for the Kinect, you've got to include it in the box, because
Right.
otherwise it doesn't make sense for us to put resources into it, because not everybody's going to
Yes.
buy Kinect. So that's where that came from, I think, and it backfired.
I think you're right. I think they absolutely should have made it mandatory, but you're right. They should have eaten the cost. And that's not, you know, just this week, we didn't talk about that with Brad Smith and Satya Nadella came out with a new policy regarding the store and how they're treating developers. They basically, again, they're getting ahead of a lot of governments are moving towards scrutinizing and regulating stores on phones as well as Windows PCs and how that's done with developers. Of course, this is because Apple gouges so much. And then Google, who was like, oh, we don't do that. Then it's like, oh, Google's been doing all these backroom deals with companies and giving favoritism to certain OEMs. So because of all that stuff, and Microsoft has been pretty innocent about a lot of this stuff, but they're like, this is what I said about privacy recognition, facial scanning and everything. Microsoft is very good with working with governments and being on the side of legislation versus opposing it. And so they get off on, they get a lot, of leeway, which is why when even in DC and the news, when they go after all the tech companies, Microsoft is always left off the list. No one talks about them. Or privacy, the store, whatever you want. Microsoft just, because they have a very good PR presence in DC for lobbying. But this is another instance where they're like, here's our new policies for the store. And it's basically everything that all these governments and regulatory agencies are proposing or thinking about doing. They're doing it themselves already. So they're like, oh, we're done. We're already ahead of the curve on this stuff. But, when it comes to the gaming store, they specifically mention that they sell the Xbox gaming store is not going to be included in this because it's a different model, which is they're like, it's well known we sell the hardware at a loss and recoup that through basically people buying games or Game Pass. Because if you're buying an Xbox game from EA, Microsoft still gets a cut of that, and that's how they recoup their costs. So this idea of having Kinect, as mandatory kind of actually makes sense for all this stuff. But they could have eaten the cost of it and just been like, yeah, for a couple of years, we're just going to sell this at a loss, build up the ecosystem around it. But I get it. That's a tough sell.
Yeah.
If you're in charge of Xbox, I get for us, it's easy to say this. For you to go to your boss and be like, we got this awesome new technology, but we're just going to give it away. And we're going to lose a couple $100 million every quarter on this. Cool. They may sign off on it. It's a better story if you can go, we're going to charge an extra $100 for it and we're going to make this much money off of it.
I think what might have been part of it was Xbox was coming off a bit of a high with the Xbox 360. The 360 was pretty successful. The PlayStation eventually sold more units, but for the majority of that generation, the Xbox was ahead. And I think Microsoft felt like they were the top of the world and like, we lead this market. We could do what we want. And, and it always does. This happens every single time. Sony's currently doing it. Sony is at the top of the console game and they're like the kings of the console. Yeah, they're very weird when it comes to things like sharing or cross-platform play has been an issue for them a lot of the times. This always happens with the top, the person at the company at the top who thinks that they can make the rules and doesn't have to play everybody else. And I think Microsoft were coming off that with the 360, so they felt untouchable. Like, hey, we did this, we built this up, we can do what we want. $4.99, you're gonna buy it, and then nobody bought it. Turns out nobody was that interested in the Xbox brand after all. And that was a problem for them, which I don't think they foresaw coming.
Yeah, and there were some great games. There were a lot of third parties. I mean, shoot, Fruit Ninja was pretty awesome. Who didn't sit there and chop fruit in their living room and
Yeah,
then
it's
get
true.
shoulder pain later? But there was so much opportunity for it. And what's funny is a lot of it was the privacy stuff at the time too. I'm going to put a camera in my living room. It could
Right.
spy
It
on.
was too early. That's the other thing.
Yes, because now it's ironic. Now we got cameras everywhere. Shoot, I mean that's all Amazon does is sell little spy devices for your house, and it's like people just don't even care anymore
Yeah.
about that stuff, which does raise the question like why wouldn't Microsoft? And what's funny is for those who don't really know, but everything that was in Connect, all that sensor and all the technologies, what turned into HoloLens to bring this all back together. It's the same. It was the same group. It was the same technology. It's the same sensors. It just evolved into a wearable headset. And now the Connect stuff does live on in like some weird Azure product,
Right.
and even Sky, which I don't know. It's a British.
Yes.
Tell us what Sky is. And what
Sky is a company that does TV, internet, phone, landline phone calls and stuff. They're like an ISP essentially with TV.
Yep. So they're selling a TV, and you can get it with a smart camera on it. That is basically Connect.
Yeah, it recognizes you as you walk in, and it comes in automatically and stuff, which is what the Xbox One used to do. You used to be able to walk into a living room, and it would log you in automatically. That was the coolest thing the Xbox One did, and I'm so sad that's gone.
Yep, it had the voice commands, had the hand jet. Remember, you can navigate menus.
Yeah,
your hands. But so this Connect TV or Sky TV basically has. It looks exactly like a Connect. It's the same technology. I believe it's actually licensed from Microsoft, but I don't know why Microsoft wouldn't start to bring this back with VR and AR. I realize it's a big project. There's also the freaking hurdle, which is, wait, you had this, then you killed it. Now you're bringing it back again. Like that's again a tough sell because you're already working against this concept that this is a failure. But I think the time is such a better time to do this. I think people would want, you could do Skype through your TV, which I get still not as popular as like what, FaceTime would be. But you could do Microsoft Teams. Like, I don't know. Like, I think you have that, the facial stuff. You can bring some games on it. And eventually with VR, there's no reason why this technology couldn't also work with the future gaming headset, like Project Fortaleza. I think I don't know if I'll get that name right, but their gaming VR concept thing. Like, I don't know. It seems like they could do something in this space again, especially if the HoloLens team is apparently working on a new headset. I don't know. I feel like Microsoft just needs to sort of stop having all these like separate divisions, and they need to sort of kind of collaborate on things a little bit more internally. But do you think we'll ever see a Connect return to the living room?
I do not. I think that ship has long sailed, and even if Microsoft was able to claw back the Xbox as number one in the console space, I don't think they'll even be willing to try and make that same mistake again. So
it's so weird too, because they tried a smart assistant, they had Cortana, they had the speaker. They've done all this stuff like separately, but it's like you could just put it back with your Xbox now, and like why all that stuff that they were doing with Cortana could have worked with Connect. And that was my issue with Cortana, right? Where on Xbox, like if you didn't have a microphone attached to your Xbox, which most people don't, how do you use it? Will you put a gaming headset on or something like that? Like, but who's going to sit in their living room with a gaming headset on just to watch TV? It doesn't make sense. Like, they never even put the microphone into the controller. So it's like, but if you had a Connect, then Cortana makes sense. And then having Cortana have skills connected up to your other smart home appliances makes even more sense. Like, I don't know. But they did all these things at separate periods of time and didn't connect them all together. That's a shame. It's the constant story of Microsoft, where sometimes they're so ahead that, and then they don't stick with it, But I get it. Like I said, if you work in a company and this is your baby, you can't just be every quarter reporting a loss and dwindling sales and low adoption of something. Be like, no, let's just ride it out for like another couple of years. I swear it'll catch on. It's a tough thing to go to your boss and make that argument. So I think a lot of us forget that. And in hindsight, it's easy to criticize this stuff. But that is the history of Connect. I don't know. I want to see it return. Anyway, we're wrapping it up about almost 90 minutes in. So quickly, I guess, thing of the week. Zach, you have a thing of the week?
Actually, no, I don't. I was going to say, well, I guess Boba Fett was done this week. It was great. I think you should watch it. Again, like we talked about last week, not everybody was a fan of it. I thought the last episode was pretty good. I enjoyed. It was much more action-packed than previous episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot I liked about it. I think there's just there are some criticisms I agree with that show, which is one, Boba Fett's he wants to be this crime lord taking over Jabba the Hutt's role.
He wants to be really nice about it.
He wants to be nice about it. No killing of people.
Yeah.
We actually don't want crime. We don't want drugs. Like, are you really a crime boss? So there is that weird angle. It's also this angle of like, why does he care so much about Mos Eisley? Was it Mos Espa? I was confused.
One of the two, yeah.
But whatever where they are, like he acts like these are his people. Like there's actually a comic I'll share with you. It's like it's him. It's a cartoon. It's like, you know, these are my people. I will defend them. And it's like some like random stranger, like, who are you? Because like the town doesn't know who he is, and why does he feel an attachment to this town? He's not from there.
I can't explain
so
the town,
really
but they really go to great lengths to show him like learning from the Sand People, and maybe he makes an attachment to the planet, and that's kind of why he's. I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but
yeah, and that's what a lot of people say that backstory about his transition from this ruthless bounty hunter that worked for the Empire to like this kind guy just wasn't fleshed out enough. It was just rushed. Even though that first episode felt kind of slow, it was just kind of rushed. And it was just like, you don't actually see the moment that kind of where like he transformed into this like nice guy. And so that was kind of weak. And I also agree. So Robert Rodriguez, pretty famous director, did a couple of the episodes. Apparently that scooter gang was his idea. And
yeah,
I don't know anyone who liked that scooter gang or the way they looked. And like, I think the idea of this gang in the town and Boba Fett hires them as muscle. Like, I think that could have worked, but they're weird 1950s scooters. They seemed very much like a George Lucas fan.
There's
fan
a moment where Boba Fett uses a pen. And I think that's the first pen I've ever seen in Star Wars.
Oh, was that for the digital thing now? I think.
No, he's writing on like some slab or some. It's not. I don't think it did look like a computer, but he takes a pen and he's writing something, and I'm like, since when did Star Wars have pens?
Yeah, that was like a digital ledger, but I know what you're saying. But yeah, I feel like so George Lucas has this obsession with like the 1950s, and you know he had that. I forgot that one of his first movies was about drag racing, like Chevrolets, stuff like that. Like so, like he has this thing for the 50s, and he kind of likes that like era. So I could see those scooter things being all chromed out. Like it's like, oh, George Lucas will like this because George actually does. He works with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau on this stuff, so I could actually see that. But the way it was done was pretty bad. But the show has like redeeming qualities. But a lot of people point out like some of the best things about the show wasn't not with Boba Fett.
Yeah. Well, I did actually learn that this was a limited series, so there was never intentions to do a season 2 anyway.
But they are in talks to do season 2.
Are they really? Why?
Yeah, people keep saying that about the limited series, but they literally had a teaser in the credits, right, for one of the characters.
True. That is true. You're not wrong. Yeah, they did have a teaser.
Yeah.
But
and it's not like he's going to get his own. I don't think he's going to get his own show.
I thought that was just going to play into Mando season 3. You know, I assume Boba Fett and this cast will become side characters in the Mandalorian show.
They're either going to do, well, that's just it, right? They're either going to do a season 2, or it's going to be part of what people are calling, and I hate this, the Mandoverse.
The Mandoverse.
Where you have these characters who kind of come in and out and stuff like that. So that might happen as well.
They also announced the Obi-Wan show is starting on May 25th, which I'm very excited about. No trailer yet, but they did announce a launch date, which is fun. And this is set quite a bit before Boba Fett and Mando, I believe. I think this is only like 10 or so years after Episode 3. So we won't see those. We could see Baby Yoda, because, you know, he was around in that sort of time period. He's 50 years old, so who knows?
Yep. I did also like in Boba Fett. I like Cad Bane a lot.
Yeah, he was cool.
So like again, he was in the Clone Wars cartoon, which I never watched, but he's like a fan service character. Like he had a major role. He actually raised Boba Fett after he left and his dad died, and Cad Bane is trained Boba Fett and knew his father Jango Fett too, which and they have this whole history and all this kind of stuff. But like the way they did him looked awesome. Like that again, that would have been a CGI character like under Lucas like 10 years ago.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
The way they did him, I was just like, dude, he looked awesome. But but now his character had a short arc. I'll just put it that way. Yeah, I think the show had potential. AV Club, who I love reading, did a great write up about this. Like they enjoyed what they never like regretted or had issues watching an episode. Like they always looked forward to watching a new episode, and they were always entertaining. They just had some of these kind of fundamental issues with some of the core parts of
the show's premise. It definitely wasn't something I thought it was going to be. Like I was expecting this whole, this is a bounty hunter. We're going to see him bounty hunting and being awesome and bad, but it just wasn't that. It was a very different story for that character, which I just think most people weren't expecting. It's still good. It's just a different sort of product, I think.
Yeah, I really like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. I think they do just enough. They do fan service, but just a little. Like they could literally just be like, "Oh, here's Luke Skywalker for 3 episodes."
Yeah. Wouldn't it have been cool if the whole premise was Boba Fett going on to find Luke Skywalker to kill him as revenge for throwing him down that Sarlacc pit? That would have been cool.
There's a rumor, not that so you have it backwards, or not backwards, but there is a rumor, and maybe they can do this in season 2, that Boba Fett's going to hunt down or meet up or face off Mace Windu.
Oh, is he supposed to be still alive now?
So 2 things. Mace Windu, if you don't recall, Mace Windu killed Jango Fett, his father.
Yes, he did.
That was that whole scene, and you saw it happen, right? So he's always hated Mace Windu for that, for I think obvious reasons. 2, Mace Windu was never confirmed dead.
That's true. You don't see a body.
Yeah, they make, there's people who talk about this, like no Jedi's ever died by falling. Like there's like in the canon, in the comics, like there's no one that's died by falling. They can actually do the Force and fix that. They've also never recovered his lightsaber. So there's no reason. And then there was this thing with Star Wars, Twitter account or the Instagram account celebrated Samuel L. Jackson's birthday and said something like there's more to come, or like the party. Oh, they said the party's just starting.
I assume he might pop up in Kenobi show. That's probably where he makes his
either
debut.
or. Yeah. But I could see a Mace Windu versus Boba Fett kind of thing. That'd be kind of wild, right? There's a lot of the stuff that they can kind of do. So I don't know. It's not perfect, but it's still pretty good. I did finally start watching Hawkeye. I only watched 1 episode. Better than I thought. Actually, the first 15 minutes were just pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
I like the little Thanos was right on the toilet.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, a lot of people, there's a subreddit called Thanos was right. I hate musicals. I would totally pay to go see Rogers the musical, just for 90 minutes of cringe. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
That whole performance, I was just dying. I was just like, I would actually pay to go see that. But I kind of like where it's going, so I'm going to continue watching that. And much to Zach's happiness, I did see Spider-Man.
Yay! Isn't it the best movie ever?
No, but it was fun. It was fun. Obviously, I knew some of the spoilers. I tried avoiding it, but it was hard to avoid them all. It was a lot of movie.
Yeah.
I thought Doctor Strange was like the best part, and honestly, I thought he was cool. But as I was telling Zach, and I won't do spoilers here, I'll just say that Peter Parker pulls a Quill, where like Peter Parker makes a decision, and you're like, I just want to flip a table and just be like, really? And like his decision just had so many negative ramifications. I was like, you dummy. I get it. They tied it up in the end, and listen, Spidey's a good guy and all this kind of stuff, but it was just like, damn, dude. Even when they're like, there's a scene with the Statue of Liberty, and like they're just like, oh, you're gonna wreck that monument too? And I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. They almost did. They almost did wreck that. So like, Jesus, why would you pick a fight there?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's some parts that infuriated me in terms of, but it's just that naivety of Peter Parker, who was a teenager, right? But the acting was great. I really like, Zendaya's role as Mary J. and his best friend and stuff like that. It's a good, wholesome movie. It was kind of cool. So
yeah,
very much looking forward to the new Doctor Strange, though. So that'd be good. All right, that's enough of the Marvel Star Wars catch up. I guess we'll do Q&A with the audience now. As always, we do record this live Fridays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, slightly earlier now, so you can always join us there for the live chats and video. You can also go rewatch the broadcast there as well. Other than that, follow me at Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, and follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. You can ask us questions, follow us, and do all that cool stuff with us as well. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Awesome.
Did you watch What If? I forgot.
No, I've not seen What If.
You got to do What If. You have to. What was that, 257?
258.
Oh, 258.
So if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. We'll hang around for a little while to see if we can answer them. Oh, the trailer for Killing Eve Season 4 came out this week as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a good show. With the lightning of Windows for Core OS, maybe HoloLens 3 made sense to use Windows Core OS, but now with no Core OS, perhaps that's why there's no Windows on HoloLens 3/AR. Windows Core OS still exists, and it actually ships on the HoloLens 2. That's already a thing that's out there. So no, that's not the reason. I think the real reason is they just wanted to go with Samsung instead. Please explain why the hell Microsoft has the business store for Surface products. This separation makes me crazy, as according to Microsoft, ordinary people do not need Surfaces with LTE. Nonsense. Yeah, I don't know why they split up some of those LTE models for the business store only. You can still buy them. You don't have to be a business. But yeah, they do certainly bury it in the business store. I don't know why they do that. I really don't. Because I know Dan agrees. Dan, LTE's for everybody, not just for the business.
And when the physical Microsoft stores, you could just go in and just ask for the LTE models, and it wasn't an issue. It was even less of a divide at the Microsoft, the physical stores. But yeah, it's a little bit weird. But it is true that the majority of LTE usage today is enterprise. But even what does that mean, right? You have a lot of people that just do both enterprise and personal on the same device. But yeah, I think it's a little strange.
Do you think
I think it's because...
Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just want to say, I think it's because I know we all think of Surface, it's this big brand and all this, but it's really not.
Right.
They're not even close to the top 5 PC makers in the world. It's really a boutique, small brand. And so they just don't have that sort of resources and divisions. The same reason why you can't get these devices in a lot of countries still. It's a really tiny. That's what's neat about Surface though. Like even the Surface Duo, it's sold in like 3 countries right now. Actually, no, it's more than that. I think it's like 7 countries or something. But it's not sold in a lot of countries. It's not on store shelves most places. I mean, you can go to Best Buy maybe. Not sold through carriers, but it's talked about a lot. And you can say that about basically every Surface product. They don't sell a lot of them, but they're talked about a lot. And that's the point of it, is that it has this emotional and like this impact on the industry that is far bigger than what it's actually doing in terms of sales. And I think that you see that with the LTE stuff as well.
Do you think Surface Dial 2 could be a thing? I've not heard about it. Could be, but I wouldn't know. If announcing new Surface devices this spring is small, can we expect big news for Surface in the fall? Big in regards to quantity, maybe. Yeah, we're definitely expecting more than 1 or 2 devices in the fall. Pro 9, Pro X2, whatever they want to call it, Laptop 5, Studio 3 potentially are all sort of on the agenda for the fall. But the Pro 9 and the Pro X, I don't think are going to be huge upgrades outside of chips and whatnot. The Studio 3 will probably be the most interesting one, or one of the biggest changes. And then the Laptop 5, again, it could go either way. It could be a new design, it could be the same design. I don't know.
Yeah, historically, the fall is always going to be the big Surface event. And actually, more recently, it's actually been the only event. A lot of times in the spring, they'll just announce a new device or two. Yeah. It's just a press release. Maybe the press get a pre-brief on it. Mm-hmm. But the fall one is usually where they would have the physical presence without COVID. And that's where they announce multiple devices, sometimes a new category device, right? So the same thing will be this year. In the fall will be the one that'll be the most exciting.
Though I'm not expecting any new category devices.
Right. Yeah. All I want, give me a laptop 5 with 12th gen, the Pro X with SQ3. That's all I really want.
Give me a studio with at least an 11th gen. Because you know what the studio is like.
Right. I'm spoiled. I don't know if I can go from a 12th gen 3080 to whatever the studio is going to be.
But that's why I'm sticking with the Studio 2, because I'm on a 7th gen right now, so literally anything is an upgrade.
Good Lord. So sad. This is for Zach, but we could both answer. What is Microsoft providing the Samsung MSAR project? It's not software. We don't know. There's not a lot known about that project. Yeah. I don't know if they would be doing the software, like creating their own Android AR, or they're just helping Samsung design the software, or if they're just contributing hardware. Because there's been this debate about should Microsoft keep their sensor technology to themselves, or maybe they're working with Samsung. We don't really know what this means. There's not a lot of info. If anyone at Samsung or Microsoft would like to share, email me at daniel@windowscentral.com.
Are there any Microsoft bombshells / leaks you're holding on to that you're waiting for the right moment to drop? I wouldn't call it nothing bombshell, I don't think. There's always info, like tidbits, little small leaks and stuff that we sort of hear about that we don't consider worthy of talking about. We know stuff that we've not talked about. None of it, I think, is like crazy. But yeah.
What was it? I'm looking to buy a new tablet. And the Galaxy Tab S8 looks compelling. I want to ask if there's any new Surface tablet release coming in the near future. I would not have hopes.
Yeah, not this year.
For tablets.
Not that I know of. Obviously, the Surface Go is the closest thing.
Yep.
But that just got renewed, so I'm not expecting the Surface Go this year.
Before you commit to the Galaxy Tab, I would just wait till after Mobile World Congress. I don't know if Lenovo is going to have any kind of tablet. I doubt it, but that's the next big release cycle is stuff that'll be announced at Mobile World Congress. And even that's not too big. So I would wait till then, but I'm not expecting many devices for Windows.
Do you think that Microsoft will keep some features in secret for the Windows event, providing that one is going to happen? I assume if there is an event, they will keep something behind as a surprise. That said, I've had no indication that there will be an event this year. Windows, they did one last year for the launch of Windows 11. Is there enough in 22H2 for them to warrant doing an event? Maybe. Again, I don't know everything that's planned for 22H2. The stuff we talked about today is only part of the picture. But yeah, who knows? I have no idea.
Sarah, we're talking about a different What If, not the one with Renee Zellweger. This is What If Marvel. Have you watched the video of the Windows 11 running on a Poco device? I saw a screenshot. That's as far as I got. I think Windows 11 on a phone is, listen, I encourage developers and people to play around with the stuff and tinkering. I think it's great. I don't think it's a viable or useful for anyone. I just don't. I think it's really cool looking. I have small devices with Windows 10 and 11 on them, like that. They're usually from Chinese manufacturers. In fact, I forget where it went to. I had one the other day. I was playing around with it. And like it's neat, like it's cool to have Windows on it. Then you start using it, and it's just like I don't know what I'm going to do with this.
Also,
Windows
always,
is not
always powered by an Intel Atom, which sucks.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like without a mouse and keyboard. Like the device I have, you can actually plug in a mouse and keyboard to it, so it's kind of neat. But it can be used without it. I forgot the name of it. I'll show it on the podcast next time. But like without the mouse and keyboard, you just like play with it for about 5 minutes. You're like, okay, I don't know what to do with this thing. It's kind of strange. What AR glasses are you most looking forward to, Samsung's or Apple's? We know nothing about either. And they're not expected to come out till 2024 or 2025, in which case I could be dead. So, I mean, if I had to choose, it's going to be Samsung, just simply because I'm more invested in the Android ecosystem. Well, I have my iPhone right here, which I use for the gym. I don't particularly like iOS at all. I think it looks terrible. It does some things I don't like. I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure Apple's implementation will be excellent, but I'm not going to ever go. I have an Apple Watch. I have the iPhone. I have a MacBook somewhere. It's not enough to like win me over as far as an ecosystem. Like, I just don't like it. That's all I can say. Like, I don't care how good it all is. If I turn it on, I look at that UI, and Zach has the same issue. You know,
Yeah.
I can't use. I don't like the apps. I don't like how the mouse works. I don't like the trackpad. I just don't like it. So that's my answer.
Are Teams still doing gangbusters? What is next for Teams? And is their consumer app dead? I don't really know what's going on with Teams. I maybe misread this, but I'm sure somebody was saying that that their growth is slowing, which would make sense.
Sure.
They've almost
'Cause they're so
acquired
dominant.
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody is almost using Teams at this point. So yeah, where they go next, I don't know. But regarding the consumer app, there's been no movement on that. That is very much still not a real thing, really. I don't use it. Dan doesn't use it. I don't know anybody who uses it. That's probably not going to be around for too long, I don't think.
I think that's something to watch. I'm really curious about the Teams integration with Windows 11. If that gets revised, they change it. They do something with Skype. I doubt. I think it'd be better with Skype for a lot of people, including myself. I still think it was funny because we've mentioned this before. I think I've always wanted them to have like an instant messaging feature built into Windows. We talk about the People Hub and all this. And they kind of gave it to us with Teams, but I was like, not that way. I didn't want Teams. I just wanted some sort of weird, like, proprietary instant messaging thing that's linked to my Microsoft accounts. That, like, it's simple. This is the concept where I have my contacts in Outlook. I see Zach is using Outlook.com or Live.com. It sees him and just shows his presence is online. And then I can just direct message him.
Yeah.
And then I can hit a button and start a video call. Maybe all the back end is Skype. Maybe it's Teams. I don't care. Just don't call it anything. Just call it like Microsoft Message.
Don't use the Teams client. That's my biggest problem. The Teams client sucks.
And just have a way that if someone's on a Windows PC near me, I can message them, kind of like the share feature. I could pick up PCs around me from other people that aren't on my contact list and message them. That'd be kind of fun. Or have it that it's just people in my contacts, and I could just send friends who are using Windows stuff without thinking. Like I don't know. For me, that seemed like the most simple concept. But they have to be like, I know this is like some program manager be like, yo, Teams, where Teams is doing good. Let's get Teams everywhere. And it was just like one of those business decisions. And part of me gets that. It's an easier thing to tell your boss. But I think they should just kept it basic and just have it a Microsoft messaging. That's it. And it's just built into Windows. And that's it. And then make a client for Android and iOS.
Yeah.
Right?
Does One Outlook / Project Monarch also replace the built-in mail and calendar apps? And do you have any more info on it generally? So originally the plan was to replace the mail and calendar apps, yet Mary Jo Foley has recently reported that plan's slightly changed. It will be pre-installed on Windows 11, or at least there'll be an icon for it in the start menu alongside the mail and calendar apps, and you'll be able to choose either one for the time being. And then I assume over time the plan is to get rid of the mail and calendar apps and just outright replace them with Project Monarch eventually. Regarding any more info on it generally, nothing outside of what Mary Jo's reported last month, I think it was now. So yeah, no, that's still coming though. It's still certainly the future of Windows Mail. Anything about Surface Duo 3 or 2L or 2S? No info on the Surface Duo since our last discussion on it. Do Surface laptops have a built-in battery limit you can set? For example, at 80% like Dell laptops. I believe Surfaces can have their battery limited to 50% in the BIOS or
Yeah, I
the
forgot
UEFI.
what it is.
Yeah,
It's
there's
a
a
new
percentage.
feature
You
rolled
can
out.
limit the battery. I just don't know what percentage to.
Yeah, it's part of the newer wave of the Surface app allows it. But yeah, we haven't explored it too much. We'll probably get an article up on it soon.
Any more news about any new third-party accessories for Duo/2? Not to my knowledge.
Turn Windows itself into a social network. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's kind of like all I want. Like I said, I just want to be in front of Windows. Just have my contact list that's connected to Microsoft accounts, and I just call people or message them. Maybe it shows up on their Skype. Maybe it shows up on their Teams. I don't care. Either or, both. It doesn't matter. But just like make it that simple. Like you can just have it both. Maybe someone gets a Skype app on their iPhone and they can message someone on Windows and it shows up in this messaging thing. Like I think they should just kept it really simple and basic. And yeah, it could become like a social network thing. Like there's just like you're going to be sitting in front of your computer. That's just kind of like, I don't know. This seems like where it's going. And they kind of got it with Teams, the Teams integration. It's just that's not what I wanted because the Teams, as many of you point out, and I agree with, is it's just totally overkill for what most people want to do. So, did Zach just say Duo 2L or Duo 2S? Yes, there's Duo 3 is not expected till 2023, probably the first half. Would Microsoft do like a 2L or 2S as like an in-between upgrade, right? It's basically just Surface Duo 2. Maybe they upgrade the processor. We don't know. They may do that. We haven't heard anything. They could do that, though, just to keep the product fresh, especially if maybe Duo 3 is even going to be longer than first half of 2023.
What was this? I heard Duo 3.
Yeah, someone's asking, they're like, did Zach just say Duo 2L or Duo 2S? And I was just explaining that we don't know. Microsoft could do an in-between device where they just upgrade the processor.
Yeah,
and make some
I doubt it. It's not necessary.
I feel like it
right?
won't.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense. But, well, this is how it makes sense. Well, it doesn't make sense. If Duo 3 is slated for first half of 2023,
yeah, definitely.
I don't think it makes sense to do a in-between device because we're already in February. When does this thing come out? September, October? So what, you're going to buy yourself 6 months for a very niche device before a completely new version comes out? Now, if Duo 3 won't come out to, say, fall 2023, now I could see an in-between device being over. But these are such small volumes for these devices. Exactly. I don't think they feel pressure.
The alternative is they could just cut the price of the Duo 2 in the fall and go, hey, the Duo, now it's $600.
Yeah, right.
or whatever. Or maybe they cut it a little bit. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that's an alternative. They could just sell the current one for cheaper.
I think the new Surface Studio monitor will be capable of being used just as a monitor.
No
It
idea.
should.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say no. HP does this,
Yeah.
although I don't know.
Everybody
I
does.
don't know
Even
if
Apple does. I'm pretty sure.
yeah. Although I don't know if the new Envy does, but they had on the previous all ones. You can just do a display in.
Any details on the February update for Duo 2? Nothing specific, as far as I'm aware. It's just going to be bug fixes this month. No new features. I'll let you know if that changes, but that's just what I've kind of heard so far.
Well, the chances that Microsoft would release its gaming handheld with Android, I'd say very small. I would say if they were to do this, it would be a cloud streaming type device. It might actually run a flavor of Android, would be very maybe customized. I don't know. I've seen prototypes of a device not from Microsoft that was this. It looks like a Steam Deck, but it's much thinner, a little bit smaller. It ran a version of Android, and it came preloaded with like Game Pass, and was it Stadia and NVIDIA's, I forgot what NVIDIA's program is called, but it came preloaded with those kind of on there, and you could just launch any of them and stream whatever service you wanted. And so I don't know what happened with that device. I remember there's some roadblocks with it, but I would see Microsoft maybe doing that, but I'm not sure they need to do that if these other companies are doing this, these other PC makers. Even Razer, that's kind of what Razer's device is, right? It runs the latest Qualcomm processor. It's only for developers right now, but I'm pretty sure Razer would kind of bring that to market. I'm not in this. One I was talking about wasn't from Razer; it was a different company. But like Razer, I would see do this. But this isn't like a device I would see that has a lot of. I don't know how many ways you can do it, right? It's going to look like a Steam Deck. You have a front-facing camera on it for game streaming. Like you can change the features, but I don't know what else. Why Microsoft would make it.
Right, last questions, and then it's time to head off.
Thank you, Sarah and Catherine and everybody else for your praise. We always have fun with this. Even if it is Friday, we're all tired.
Zach and Dan, when are we expecting Microsoft to optimize Windows for foldable devices? That's the problem. We're not expecting it, and that's the concern. Microsoft has not said that they are planning to do that. OEMs, Intel came out and said, yeah, we're expecting foldable PCs with Windows this year. Yeah, there's really not much going on in the insider builds, at least, that would suggest that Microsoft is planning to support those devices natively in regards to the many postures that they can find themselves in. It could happen. I just might not be privy to it. I don't know. But yeah, I've not heard of any plan to support foldables in the way that you would expect Windows to support them. Will Game Pass come to smart TV platforms? I think that's the plan, right? I don't know if Microsoft has really talked about this, but I think Phil Spencer sort of commented on it and said, yeah, we'd love to, have an app on smart TVs, for example. Google Stadia does this. I think it's crazy. I tried it out. The Stadia app on the LG OLEDs, you can just connect the controller to the... So how Google Stadia does it is the controller doesn't connect to the device you're playing on. It connects to the internet. And then so your inputs are sent to the internet, and then you see them respond on your screen, which is what's being streamed. The Xbox doesn't do that. The Xbox uses Bluetooth to connect to the device that's in front of you, which then sends the signal through the app you're using to game stream up into the cloud, and then you get your response. That's a problem for TVs because not all TVs support Bluetooth, and if they do, a lot of them don't do it very well. So that's something Microsoft needs to figure out. They'll have to need to release an Xbox controller that connects directly to the internet or come up with another way of doing it. But yeah, I do think that's sort of on their roadmap. Okay, that's probably about it for today. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time.
Bye.